Hey guys, it's Andrew here. Just finished top 16 at Nationals for DBS. I played DEMIGRA. Just giving you guys a deck profile. Also showing off the little rewards that you get. Goku Black, it's a Masu Metal card, Merit card. So for people who don't know DEMIGRA, this is not very popular. When you attack with the leader, you on the front side, you mill 3 or basically like burst almost, and then you draw a card if you're swinging at a leader. I believe, right? Yeah.
It has to be black.
It has to be all black, and I have to attack a leader. The deck is mono black for that reason in the main, and when you awaken, you untap 2 life. Untap 2 energy. Untap 2 life. Untap 2 energy. On the back side is where he gets very powerful. When he attacks, you draw a card, and then he has this cool effect, Wormhole, that lets you overwhelm or dark overwhelm twice per turn. And then he also has an activate main that lets you put back 3 cards. That basically lets you fuel this engine, and that's how you grind people out of games and how you accumulate advantage. You want to awaken, and then start overwhelming twice per turn, which usually they can't beat. All right, so getting to the deck. Play 4 Black Masayan. This was against Shenron, and Janemba. It's also very good. Basically, matchups where you want to awaken as quickly as possible. You can have this guy on turn 1. If you're going second, it's very good because you can play this guy. Swing with it, swing with leader, and swing with an overwhelm. So you get 3 swings on your first turn. Then the second turn you get to swing with this again, and then use your DEMIGRA to awaken. Take 2 life, so you're at 4 already. So you can awaken on turn 2, and that's basically that almost auto wins most matchups like Shenron, because there's way too many attacks. You attack them in the course of 2 turns like 7 times, and they can't defend that. They're probably not even awakened yet. The Son Goku, just the best value engine that this deck has, along with time regulators. You need this against aggro matchups. Broly U6 is kind of difficult. You need to defend yourself early, because if you take the life, then the combo plays that they use to a rival and combo into play their creatures start to hurt more. So you want to stay at a high life total and kind of grind that game out as much as possible. And you have to pick your spots when to go in, and this helps with that, so you're just not horribly behind on card advantage. The 3 balls to go with that, 4-3 seem like the correct split. Just in case you draw 1 or prize 1, you still always have 1, and you can just recur that one over and over again. So 4-3 is pretty good. Also, it just thins your deck, which you want to do with time regulators. You want to shuffle back in cards you want to draw, and then thin your deck of a bunch of like DEMIGRAs and 4-star balls, so that way you can get to cards that are more impactful in the game. The 4 super combos, you do the one that's when your life is at 4 or less, because now this deck has guaranteed awakening, which is huge, and also you're an aggressive deck, so you want to push the pace and take life. This changes in several matchups. Your role changes. You're not always the aggressive deck. Sometimes you have to be more mid-range control, but this is still a very good super combo. You don't really want to be super comboing above 4 life anyways. 3 dimension control DEMIGRA. This is just for the DEMIGRA package. It's your other target. It's a solid overwhelm. Gets you a lot of value. Usually it basically, think of it as a 20k that eats a card, which is like a 5k worth of value, and then requires another 5k to out combo. So it's usually like attacking for like 30k. It usually gets like minimum 2 cards, possibly 3 cards out of your opponent, and that could just destroy them, rip their hand apart. It's also a 0-5k, so it did what it needed to for 1 energy, which is really good. This guy is what makes this deck possible.
He's new, right?
He's the new card, yeah. The reason this deck was not successful before is because it couldn't awaken. It didn't have a way of taking its own life and getting to the backside, which is what's powerful about this leader, overwhelming twice. Now that you can do that, you're way ahead. Like you're actually a contender. Like the deck is very strong only because of this card. The fact that this card also generates this much value is also insane. Because think about it, it's a burst 2. So you set up your overwhelm. You only have to pay 2 energy. You get a 20k usually, or you can get the 15k. A 20k, a Poutine that searches out, which is a 5k, which searches out another DEMIGRA, which is another 5k. So in that whole sequence, you generated 5 to 6 cards worth of advantage. A 20k is like 2 cards. The Poutine is 1 card there. You drew 2 life, and then you searched another card. So that's like 6 cards. The game just swung completely in your favor, and now you get to overwhelm twice still in that turn. So this card is just busted. You have to run it at 4, and this is like staple in every DEMIGRA deck for the rest of the time. The Poutine searches out this guy, and she's just the most solid Poutine that you can play. You can play like the 1-drop blocker, but she doesn't do anything. At least this is a 10k pressure Shenron, which is huge. Searches out the guy that you need to awaken, and it, you know, generates, it's just 2 5Ks worth of value in the late game. Yeah, 4 copies of that for sure. This, we first started with 3 of the 20k gravy, but we moved to 2 of the 20k and 1 of this one. Simply because this guy, sometimes the games get to a point where you've used a lot of your burst and mill effects and so on, and it's hard to get these overrun 7s and overrun 5s, at least, especially 2 of them every turn. So this guy kind of helps set that up, where you can just have him on board or in hand and just combo him, and he lets you set up that overrun without losing too many cards in hand. Usually there's ways of doing it efficiently, like swinging here for 20, swinging here for 25, etc., just to kind of pressure the opponent. But this just makes it and facilitates it that much better. It's also a 15k, so it's not that bad. I think this is the correct split. I don't think you need much more than that. You usually resolve 2 and like you mill them or combo them from hand, and you have them in warp. Since this guy searches from warp, it's like you're pretty good with that number. 4-time choice Supreme Kai of Time. She digs for super combos. That's the biggest thing. This deck wants to see super combos. It's an aggressive deck. Sometimes you mill them and you don't really have a way of searching them like, you know, U6 decks do. And you don't really like, you see cards, you see a lot of cards, but you see specific cards, like you're searching your deck, you're thinning your deck, like you're seeing your balls, you're seeing your DEMIGRAs, you're seeing your things. So this just helps dig further for super combos. It's basically a 15k that most of the time will find you a super combo, or like a removal piece like a Banisher Fu or Seto. Banisher Fu is a 4 of because it's a 0-5k, which makes it better for the aggressive pushes than having like a Massaian. At first we started with a 2 Massaian, 2 Banisher Fu split for removal, but Banisher Fu just seems like it does most of the same thing in most matchups, and it's just a 0-5k, so it just ends up being better in that case. You know, everything else about them is the same, so I like this, just 4, just your removal package. I'll keep it like that. Moving on to the defense, we just play 4 negates main. The reason why this negate is so good is because it's great for aggressive decks, because it's a negate and it's also a 5k, because it gets you back a Kid Goku or a Black Massaian. So you can use it to defend, and then it'll give you extra combo power for offense on the next turn. So definitely 4 of this. It's sparking. It's exactly what the deck needs in terms of defense. You can activate it when you're tapped out, etc. 2 time regulator. This is how you win a lot of grindy matchups. Probably should be more of this in the main, because he's so critical to certain matchups. You really need to see him in matchups where you're trying to play defensive, because if not, you can't play defensive because you mill yourself out. And he's able to shuffle back. Once you thin your deck, he starts shuffling back all the cards that are really good and you want to draw, so you're just drawing gas every turn. Every time you draw, you're drawing like insane. You're drawing back your super combos that you shuffle back in, and so on. There's also a lot of ways of shuffling the deck. You can shuffle your deck with Kid Goku, you can shuffle your deck with the Poutine, and you could shuffle your deck, what's the other card? And this guy also shuffles your deck. So you have 12 cards to shuffle your deck. You activate their effects, so you can get the cards from the bottom and put them back, you know, in a random order and draw them again. So he's very important. I relied on him a lot. I only played him at 2 because in our testing it didn't come up too often, but throughout this tournament I felt like I had to play the control role or I was gonna die. So this guy helped me do that. Fu, mission accomplished. Completely useless. Not completely useless, but you know, he didn't come up. He was supposed to be like a Janemba type tech, where you know you're able to buy back your time regulator and so on in case they get milled, because you kind of need it in that matchup to you know, survive long enough. I mean, it's a fine one of. You could play a double strike Champa or double strike Kai, probably a little bit better, or just anything else, or probably a 3rd regulator. That's probably where it should be. It's just because usually in the matchups where this will come up, you're probably going to buy back a regulator because it's a very late game card, just a mana sink later on. What's cool is that you can warp it and overrun with it, and then use your leader to put it back into the drop, and then use its effect. That's why it's good. And it gets every card in the deck that isn't an extra card, so you can get back your super combos if you're going for a push for game. Just give you that extra 10k plus draw. It's an okay card. I didn't like it though. I rarely use it. Then this is kind of the big boy of the deck. This is how you close out games. The Overwhelm, the reason you play this one over Scientist Food, it's a 0.5k, and the effect is relatively the same. Food draws you 2 cards, but is a 25k. This draws you 1 card, but is a 30k. So they end up being a lot of the same. So this guy just feels to me strictly better in any type of Overwhelm deck that needs to be aggressive, unless there's a reason for the Fu name. And also the untapping of the energy comes up a lot, especially in the defensive matchups, so you can leave up a bunch of negate them out of their turn and get another turn back yourself. And then finally 2 Bardock Awakened Instincts. Just helps you dig. A lot of times you just need to see, again, your super combos, your time regulators, etc. So it just digs you 2 deeper in the deck. It feels solid. It's a 20k. It's a free Overwhelm. It's, I think, slightly better than the time regulator, the Trunks time regulator that's Overwhelm 3, but not by much. It also sends to the drop, so you get a little bit better towards your next Overwhelm. All right, and then for the side deck, I played
right up front, I guess.
Yeah, I played 1 Kai. This came in a lot over this card that was useless. It just allows you to, like, if your opponent knows you have it, they have to play differently, and also it just steals games. It just wins games. Like, you just swing with leader, like, they're not expecting it. They're at 2, they're like, oh, no negates, and then you just push for game because you have a massive hand advantage over them. So I would definitely say you might even want one of these main, or just keep it at the 1. It's possible you want 2. I'm not sure how that works out with the math of, like, when you attack with your leader on the first few turns of the game. But it was definitely a very useful card, as it should be in any aggressive deck. It's just, so the rest of your hand is 5Ks. You have this as a double strike 10K. It just seems right in the deck. It's just the leader kind of messes with you, thinking you don't want to play non-black cards, but it's good. Time Regulator, the 3rd. This came in a lot in any matchup where they were trying to play a longer game against me, or they were trying to, like, play even an aggressive game against me. I just need to sometimes ooze enough value out of my cards to just make it to the point where I have enough resources, or my Overwhelm, my leader, kind of wins by himself, just overwhelming twice a turn, because that's kind of like a +1. I don't know how you would constitute that, but it's more than other decks can do. So very important card. 2 Massane for more removal. This card's exactly where it should be. 2, you want to bring it in matchups like Broly Apes, Broly U6, basically any deck that tries to establish a board or is dangerous on the crackback against you, because you can't go fully aggressive against decks that can kill you back. That's a quick way of dying with this deck. You only have 5Ks to defend yourself, so your defense isn't as good as it will. You have a big hand size, but if they're attacking with a 35K, it's like if you don't have super combos, you're throwing 6 or 5 cards out of your hand to defend that attack. So you have to be careful in setting that up. So what you want to do with this deck to avoid that is remove their board as much as possible. All their 15Ks, get them off the board. All their 20Ks, get them off the board. If you're controlling the board with this deck, you're probably going to win. So that's why this card is in here. So just to add more, basically banish your Fu effects. 2 Trunks Power Overseeing Time. This is for, again, when the games go really, really late. You need to buy back cards. It's like really good against Janemba, really good against Broly Apes. If you mill stuff, it feels weird to do this into aggressive decks, but yeah, it turns out in my top match, I probably should have brought these in. They would have helped me in that game because I milled all my regulators and I couldn't kind of get back into that game without that card. So Trunks Power Overseeing Time is a very strong card for this deck. Definitely, I would keep this at 2 on the sideboard. Any grindy matchup, this card is huge. It either buys back a super combo or buys back a regulator, so you can just keep the value engine going and grind your opponent out of the game. 2 Force Ejection Massane. This is actually probably not necessary. It's insane, obviously, against Shenron, but it only comes in that matchup. And that matchup already feels like it's so favored that I'm not sure if you need this card. Against my one opponent, I was able to, he made a play where he left himself only with 1 energy. I warped the energy. He didn't have Xenobud and he was dead on the spot. So, I mean, it's very powerful in that sense, just like killing your opponent's energy before they can Sensu Bean or Whis' Coercion off of it. And obviously it just if there is a scenario where you couldn't kill them, it does generally buy you that extra turn, and then you'll kill them on that turn. So it is very good, very nice to have in that matchup. I'm not sure if it's necessary. Like I said, it came up once for me, and that's it. So 2 of this Goku that negates. It's a 0/0 combo card. It's not a card that I wanted in the main as an aggressive deck, but in the world of Mirror Champa, which is a degenerate combo, especially when you can untap it, you need to negate the attack, if not you're taking the life. So you need to cycle these back with Power Burst and just keep negating attacks. That's kind of how you beat Broly decks. You just kind of stifle their turns, let it come back to your turn, remove the board, and then start pressuring their life. And eventually you can outgrind them. Even though they have so much card advantage and so much, all these advantageous cards, you have to really, you can't just go full aggressive against a deck with Zeno Button and a million 10k combos that they're not gonna die. You have to really take it into the late game and run them out of resources, kill all their apes, etc. So this helps you do that, so you don't have to take too much damage while you're grinding out the game. Bombs. The bombs came in. They're very good against decks like Vegeta Baby, which can be a problem for this deck. Just get rid of if they don't have strategies on it. Just extra copies of Banisher Fu in that matchup. It's good against Broly, Green Broly. I played against that once. This card destroyed him because you're able to Banisher Fu. They go into the 8-drop and then you bomb that, and then the game's over because they have nothing left. It's also good against Broly Apes because you could just, they summon 2 apes in a turn, you can bomb one and banish your food the other, and then you don't have to deal with them on defense. So I think this card is appropriate 2 of in the sideboard. And yeah, I would keep it like that. 3 seasoning arrows. This was supposed to be against Janemba, which I never played against once. It can probably be cut down to 2 for that matchup, or there could be better cards in that matchup. But I felt like this one really does put in work. Again, any matchup that gets, really, really grindy, where you don't have to worry too much about defense, I think this is the really good card. It's also good against Broly Apes. It's not bad against Broly Apes, is what I meant. So it's the matchups that I would have brought it in against. And yeah, it's a decent card. It usually like 3-for-1s them, or they take the damage. So it kind of is really strong against Janemba, especially if you're pushing him for game. They probably can out combo like 2 of these plus double strike and a bunch of 10Ks. I mean, not a bunch of 10Ks, a bunch of 5Ks. So it was okay. Probably should cut it down. Maybe for another time regulator or another double strike Kai. I'm not sure exactly, but yeah. Alright, that's the deck.
Pretty interesting. Get a whole view of the deck here. You got any shout outs, man?
Shout out to Pro Play Games and Ultra Pro. Shout out to Isaiah over here. He's
You're the best DEMIGRA player in the room, even though he did better than me.
Shout out to my team, Jonathan, Matt, who helped test, Machado, Peter, and of course Justin, who helped me out a ton with this deck and kind of convinced me to play it because I was on the fence. Overall, I really enjoyed the deck. I think it was strong enough to take the tournament. It's just unfortunate that the leader has a lot of variance, but we'll hopefully see a lot more DEMIGRA and a lot more tops from it, because I think it's a very fun deck to play. And yeah, that's it.
Yeah, you ran pretty clean this weekend, man. Hope to see you at more events.
All right, bye.